Hi, everybody. I'm here today to talk to you about EVP Collection. So, EVP stands for Electronic Voice Phenomenon. Now, this is what you see on the TV shows and stuff when people are trying to capture voices or sounds, disembodied voices or sounds on audio recorders. So this is kind of a fun way to investigate. And one of the staple things that people use when they're investigating. So, we're gonna get into kind of our rules and things that we do when we're doing investigations with EVP sessions and stuff like that. But I'm gonna start by talking about some of the equipment. So, audio recorders are easy to come by. Most smartphones have audio recorders on them. So, when you're just kind of starting out, trying to see if you're interested or if you like, um, doing EVP sessions, this is something that you want to like do more of, I would always suggest using the recorder on your phone. You can buy cheap ones off of Wish, Amazon, eBay. You can get them like at Walmart. So just like the cheap digital recorders, they are easy and they work, they function, they're fine. So decide before you invest like $300 in a recorder if that's actually what you want to do. Those ones work, so it's not a big deal. For myself, I started using the audio recorder on a Samsung tablet, and then I switched to my phone, and then I got like a kind of cheap Panasonic recorder, and I had a Sony one, and so yeah, I started out with the kind of cheaper ones, and then I decided to invest and get like a kind of better, more sensitive recorder, and I moved up to this Tascam. So I love EVPs. I love recording them. I love when you find one. It's amazing to me. They're my favorite kind of evidence. So that's why I invested in these recorders that I have. So I have this one, which is a Tascam, which I bring on every single investigation. It is one of my all-time favorites. And yeah, I mean, it's amazing. And it has lasted me like several years. So highly recommend if you decide to invest. Tascam is a really good record. Like there's a bunch of different ones. So Tascam, or I have this one. It is a Zoom recorder. It is like a microphone and it's got a little stand, and we always joke about how sensitive this is because it is super sensitive. So this is really cool, and they're also super easy to work, which is important because I'm not incredibly technical. So those are the two that I bring on every investigation. They're my favorite, and I'm really happy that I invested in them. There is a difference between the cheaper ones and the more expensive ones. The more expensive ones are obviously much more sensitive. You're going to pick up more things, which is amazing, and it's great on the one hand. On the other hand, they're also going to pick up a lot of stuff that you might not notice in the background when you're just there, like things, noise from outside, people talking outside, people talking in other rooms, things like that. You have to be aware of this, that when you're using a more sensitive audio recorder, you're going to pick that kind of stuff up. So you want to make sure that you're super aware of what's going on, the time of day, things like this, so that and you can like kind of mark it when you're reviewing your audio. Now, when we do EVP sessions, when we are on investigations, there's two types of ways that we record. So the first would be an EVP session, which is when we all sit down and we talk about what's going on, and we ask questions, and we try and get a spirit, if there's one present, to kind of respond to our questions. So there's some general rules with EVP sessions, and they're very important, I feel. So the first one, the golden EVP session rule, is no whispering. If you whisper, sometimes the person reviewing doesn't realize that it's you whispering, and they think that it's a spirit, and then it ends up being nothing, and it's a real bummer. So don't whisper. If you do whisper, tag it. Say, sorry, that was just me whispering, because it happens when you're sitting in kind of a quiet location. You end up kind of whispering to each other so that you're not making a ton of noise. So it happens. We have all done it, but just make sure that you're tagging it so that it doesn't end up being an issue. Also, when you ask questions, make sure that you give some time in between. So if you're asking, is there anybody here with us right now? You want to give whoever might be there enough time to respond with, yes, I'm here. My name is George. I live in the basement. Like, you want to make sure that they have like at least like 10 seconds to respond to answer your question. We also, when we're on investigations, we base our questions on things like the history of the location, the activity that's been reported, and experiences that people have had. So if somebody says, in this room, I've heard a woman singing every night at 8 o'clock, we would then ask, are you the woman singing every night at 8 o'clock? Who are you singing to? Why are you singing? Things like that. So we kind of base our questions on that. And then you have the staples. Is there anybody here with us? What's your name? Why are you here? These kind of questions are always good if you don't know the full history of a location. And we go based on our kind of gut feelings too. Like if we felt like there was a man in the room with us, we'll ask, like, is there a man here? What's your name? And any kind of feelings that you have that might kind of relate to what's going on, you would want to ask questions. There's like no limits as far as EVP questions go. So you want to make sure that you're giving time, no whispering. And when we start an EVP session, we always tag our voices. So we'll turn on the recorder and we will say, this is Melissa. We're doing an EVP session in such and such a room at such and such a location on this date at this time. And we're going to go around and tag everybody in the room. So then I would say my name, and then you'd move on to the next person. Everybody says their name so that when you're reviewing, if you hear a voice, you have this clip to go back to so that you know what the voices of everybody that was in the room sound like, and you can kind of gauge if the voice you hear is them or not. And we have had investigations where somebody talked, and later when I was reviewing, I was like, who is that? And then we have to kind of go around and ask everybody. So if you have it all tagged and all of the voices tagged, then it makes things a lot easier. So tag your voices, leave lots of room in between questions, no whispering. Go with your gut when you're asking questions. Sometimes we'll make lists beforehand just to be kind of ahead of the game. And always make sure that you're having fun. And before we close out an EVP session, we usually say thank you, and then we kind of close it out and we let the recorder know that we're turning it off. There's one other way that we do recordings on investigations, and that is when you turn a recorder on, you leave it in a room, and you walk away, and you just kind of see what you can catch. This is a fun way to get EVPs, and this is a lot of the times where you get the really good ones. We caught a really cool one in the Airdrie house in Heritage Park that sounded like somebody running down the stairs when the house was like completely empty. So that's one of my all-time favorite EVPs. It wasn't a voice, it wasn't talking, it was just very, very loud movement in a space where there was for sure nobody. So it's really cool. So EVPs don't necessarily have to be voices, they can be sounds, which is another interesting thing to note. So if you're ever reviewing and you hear a sound that you know couldn't possibly have happened, then you might have caught a sound EVP. So that's really neat. So when we leave audio recorders in rooms and then leave the room, we will go in a location, we will turn the recorder on, we will say, this is Melissa, I'm in this room at this location. On this date, I'm leaving this recorder running. I'm going to walk out of the room right now, and then it will be empty, and then you'll walk away. And if you come back in the room at a later time, you would announce yourself. This is Melissa. I'm walking back in the room. You're going to hear me moving around. And when you leave, you would announce that you're leaving. And this is just for review later. So these are kind of important rules that we like to follow, that we always stick to on investigations. And it's been really beneficial for us so far because we've been able to weed out a lot of things that are not paranormal in nature. So you're not like really wondering, like, is this really something or no? then when we catch something, we feel a lot more confident that it actually is something. Another thing to remember is if you decide that you want to start doing some EVPs, remember that however long you set that recorder out for is how long you have to review for. So if you decide to record yourself sleeping overnight to see if a ghost talks to you in your ear while you sleep, and you sleep for 8.5 hours, you now have 8.5 hours of audio to review of you snoring. So you got to remember this when you're doing these things. It's not super fun to review 8.5 hours of somebody snoring. And please don't send that 8.5 hours of you snoring to me to review, because I have a lot of my own stuff to review. So we have a hard time with that. So if you do have a clip though, an audio clip of something that you want us to listen to, we definitely would love to hear it. We love to hear EVPs and the stories behind them. So always send them if you want our thoughts on kind of what we see or hear or whatever. But yeah, if you set up 5 audio recorders for 5 hours, you now have 25 hours of audio to review. So remember that when you're doing this, it's going to take you a long time to go through it all. And having 25 hours of audio to review generally takes way longer than 25 hours because you can't just sit there for that long. So yeah, that's something important to remember. I mean, otherwise, like, that's really the only downfall for me with EVP Collection. I love it. It's super fun. It's my favorite part of investigating, is hearing the cool audio evidence. I don't know why. I like the video evidence too, but the audio stuff is so interesting to me. So yeah, if you have any cool EVP stories or cool EVPs that you want to send, please do. If you have any questions, let me know. If you want to hear about any of our amazing EVPs that we've caught on our investigations, feel free to ask. Otherwise, I'll be back on another day with another video about something totally different. Okay, thanks guys. Bye.